Melbourne preview time. We're off to Flemington, which will be the first of two leading up to Super Saturday in Saturday week's time. This meeting, Aaron, on a 2-metre rail with a cool day and a bit of a southerly. What are you forecasting for Flemington on Saturday?
Yeah, coming through the lead up, I guess, 2 weeks ago, it was a true rail, and the most significant factor really on that day was the wind. It was a pretty similar wind to what we can likely expect on Saturday. It's something to really monitor and potentially adjust for. So that meeting, it was blowing across runners on the inside for straight races. It was partially assisting circle races so long as you got to the front relatively comfortably. So we could see something fairly similar, but we'll just wait and see.
Half the program down the straight. So would you rather be outside horses rather than on the inside?
Yeah, I think that's one of the I'm not too concerned about some of the middle to low barriers so long as they've got cover from that wind blowing across the inside, but it will be advantageous to draw out, I'd say.
And your thoughts on this program?
Oh, really keen, because we had horses that we were keen to be with at that Flemington meeting 2 weeks ago, and they've either won or run really well, so there's no reason to drop off. And there's a couple that we were keen to take on at short prices that are still chewing up a good percentage of the market, just given their carryover SPs. So it's a good meeting to bet into.
Anchors, Gord, you call them, don't you? SP anchors.
Yeah, I just agree with everything Aaron said there, 100%. Like I love situations like this. Saying that, I'm a little bit scared after last week because I was super keen on some shorties last week, and I go looking for the favourites I want to back, and they didn't really get the job done for me. But later on in the program, I'm going again. So let's hope we can get a few of these shorties up on Saturday.
All right, so it's a fairly steady start into the program. We've got a mares race down the straight to kick it off, and Tintuki down, well, still in at Randwick, so we don't know where it's going to run, but it's $3.50 in this market with Sans Doute. Cinderella Days resuming for Graham Begg at $4, Waltz on by at $7, and End Journey at $10. End Journey is in at Moonee Valley tomorrow night, and it is part of the speed with Cinderella Days. So I had those two showing out. Is there much to this, Aaron?
Likely not. If End Journey comes out, that'll be somewhat significant. I sort of hope it stays in. It's chewing up a good percentage of the market. Ran some pretty ordinary time there. First up, Sans Doute, for me, is chewing up a really big percentage of the market. I know it's won both starts down the straight, but that was one that you could have adjusted for on the day and easily found, given the inside significant bias on that meeting. And it only just fell in, and I don't really rate that field super highly. The Sydney horses got an absolute stranglehold in this race, Tintuki and Cinderella Days. It's a bit interesting, Cinderella Days. Normally you see this the other way around. Pride normally picks up a horse like this. It's going the other way. But this horse, the good track stats don't read particularly well, but you go back to the second previous preparation, first up there on a good track, like it was in pretty much a photo finish there within Secret, and was it Sunshine in Paris? He trialled brilliantly the other day against our absolute A-graders. So if the horse is with us, it's clearly a bet. And the other one, obviously, is Tintuki, which has got the form through our Kobe son. I thought it was actually pretty good there last start, as much as it got narrowly beaten. I think that the form lines that those two have just got links on the Melbourne lines. And as much as that's a fairly skinny bracket, you might be able to average $4 and get the pair running for you for $2 on the day, and I'd expect one of these two wins.
Good old Aaron bracket bet. Gord, how are you playing this?
Yeah, exactly the same way, except I'm just going to back one horse. I'm going to back Cinderella Days. I sort of was like going, okay, which one of you two am I going for? Because I thought the other one in the market got PR. And then the deciding factor was watching the trial of Cinderella Days, which was absolutely sensational. Jesus, looks like it's so strong now. It's up against Bella Nipotina, passive aggressive there. And when Shin gave it a squeeze, it was like, wow, well, you've come back well yet again.
It's been working with passive aggressive, hasn't it?
Well, but I mean, what about What about what you say there, Aaron? But normally you're looking for pride getting fillies during their career and switching them on. This is very strange. Saying that, its lines are like close to absolute A grade Cinderella days, and the trial was absolutely sensational. While Tintuki's stuff is not absolute A grade, particularly if you consider the last run at Randwick. Now, if the line was just through our Kobe Sun, I'd probably give it more of a chance. But because the run against She's an A-lister and Acapella Sun, it's a highway horse, isn't it? As Glenn would say.
L1 variable.
Yeah, look, I just think if this horse has come back the way it looked in the trial, it'll be winning this. So number one, Cinderella Days for me. Which is the longest of the three at the moment.
Fascinating resumer, hey? Race 2 is 2,000 metre benchmark 84, and Aramco is favourite again, $2.60. Kettle Hill down from Sydney, although it's been in Melbourne recently, $5.50. Strawberry Rock 6, Claim the Crown down from Sydney, $7, up and under, second up Walla $9. And Aramco again gets control from Milton Park. It looks similar to last start. What was Aramco's excuse last start, Aaron? The 28 days?
Oh, no, I think we were keen to take that horse on from the short price because of how advantageous lane 1 was at the previous start. It was just on fire and it got away with something with some middle sectionals there. In saying that, it's going to get PR again here. So I don't have a super strong opinion on this race because I think the market's got it fairly well spot on. I'd expect the Aramco starts around this price, might even shorten because there's some question marks on a few other horses' form lines, but their profiles sort of work. Strawberry Rock's coming off big SPs, but good run there last start, third up. Claim the Crown's another one, third up. Shin On, slight question marks about the Sydney form. Kettle Hill, this is obviously about its grade, 60 kilos. Up and under is the interesting runner in the race. It can go one of two ways. It sort of depends on how you view that first up run. When you're likely to be better over further, it looks a genuine 2,000 metre horse, but when there's speed on in the race, you can either say you should have been able to expose the others off a genuinely run mile race, or you can go the other way and say this horse is first up, had improvement to come. That's not ideal. So it's the one that is likely to fluctuate, either really short or flick out. But Aramco is probably the right price and might be hard to beat given the run it will get.
Yeah, well, God, you were casting aspersions on Aramco a fortnight ago, and correctly, because he got run over with every chance. What are you saying about this race this time?
Yeah, again, just taking up too much percentage of the market, which means in a race in which, I don't normally like to get involved in these kind of races, super like exposed form 2,000 metres kind of stuff, but it kind of forces me to bet because I'm going to be against it again, but not as strongly as I was last start. I give it more of a chance in this race than I did last start. And a couple of interesting horses here. I found up and under last start, and I needed to see it do a little bit more, so I'm going to drop off there. The one which is, I don't know whether I've got your voice ringing in my head or not, Mark, it just looks a perfect setup for number 4, Strawberry Rock. You know what I mean? 16, 18, 2,000, now third up. Kind of like what it did. I mean, we've got a line through our Soldado there last start with Strawberry Rock, and I think Strawberry Rock has had a lot more upside and was probably a better run as well. So clearly on top, number 4, Strawberry Rock, probably going to get involved. And the other one is the Sydney horse, where Claim the Crown, and that is yet again, where we're third up, we get a primary Melbourne jopper and Shin getting on board, and we get Nisham, who I'm looking to spike coming into the carnival. So 4 from 6.
Fair enough. 78 down the straight, 1,200 metres, and Big Watch, who bloused Ouroboros last start, is $5. Master Montaro, $5.50. Ivan's Hero, $6.50. Fresh Up. Moral Force, $7. Shove Overheads, the others at $10. And the Gaybot horse Favala will show out. It's a fairly slow horse for 1,200 metres. I've got Ivan's Hero, and again, a fairly slow horse for 1,200 metres. Shove Over and Master Montaro. Do they just sort of like wander like sheep up the straight here, Aaron?
A little bit. It's very tough to see some tempo in this race. Like for Valor, I've got it leading as well, but it's first up and it's a it's a 1,600-metre horse, so it's not going to be a truly run race at all. Big Watch, I was keen to be against it, just given the price. I thought it sort of had every chance against Ouroboros. Ouroboros was first up, 61.5 kilos. I think if they wanted to really win that race, they probably could have. They chose not to bust it there first up. It's a pretty tough horse. It could have done quicker sectionals in the early part of the race and still been tough late, whereas this was third up and had a fitness edge on it with less weight and just bloused it. So I was happy to be against it. Just given the price discrepancy, Southern Fire, I've got no opinion of it as a horse, but down the straight, it seems to be a completely different animal. That No Metro wins, obviously a pretty weak race, but what it did there sort of sparked my interest. And then last up behind Big Watch, just the way it flattened out late, the sectionals that it did were pretty good, and I think the 1200's actually going to be better suited to it, and I can see it mapping getting some cover, and it's also got a turn of foot off slow tempo, I think. So it's 20 to 1. I think you have to cover it. Master Montaro, though, I had on top. Really good resumption there behind Mrs. Chrissy. It's got the 1,200-metre run at Flemington behind Jungle Gym, which is really strong form for a race like this. Good win at Sandown. It was probably close to a moral there last start at Cranbourne before the lightning struck. So finds itself in this race. Yeah, it's on top.
Take your position here, Gord.
Yeah, low confidence race, but I got number 8, Ivan's Hero, on top. Really like the jump outs. Had 2 came second and first in them. Booking a Lane is like a real big push from the Wallace stable. And then I'm looking for a run recently which would win or go close to winning this. And I found it in that 2 back last preparation at Randwick where it came second to Osbred Flirt. I think that's good enough to win this race. So look, really simple sort of variable, sort of finding a bet kind of scenario. But I think those 3 are enough of a push in this incredibly weak race. So if it's ready, it can do something.
Yeah, pick up 6, we would have said once upon a time. All right, the 1,000-metre race for 2-year-olds, and Bold Bastille was lame last up. How lame? Does anyone know how lame it was? Because we grade them in Sydney.
It actually wasn't that particularly lame, but it had some issues in its blood work leading up to it, and it wasn't eating all that well. So there were some little concerns going into the run anyway, and then it hasn't completely got through the run all that well.
$2.40 here, coming back to the 1,000 drifting, is $5.50, always enough, 7. Lovers Forever heads the others at 11. And Bold Bastille is obviously a speedy filly. She's down in 1. And other bits of speed I found was Skycap off the 900 at Newcastle. Always enough. Grinzinger Love and Torres have been marked as on-speed horses off their jump outs. Have you got any sort of approach here, or have you got a map here, Aaron?
Yeah, Bold Bastille leads for fun. I really hope people queue up that called it a cat their last start, getting beat at $2, because I think it's close to a good thing in this race. It had plenty of excuses in leading up to the run, I think in the run, but it's also only been beaten 3 lengths by the subsequent Diamond winner, and it's clearly better suited at 1,000 metres. The figure it did on debut was still one of the biggest figures we've seen from a 2-year-old all season. And then you look at what it's up against. Average at best, I think. And then you've got, drifting. Oh, hang on.
Unstable internet.
Yeah, we've got most of what. Yeah, we've got your drift, Aaron. So
the unraced I think are no good, and the race, drifting. I don't think that's form.
No, well, it's Hawkesbury, so that's a black mark already. Gord, what are you saying about this favourite?
Well, I mean, I don't like to forgive, but I mean, if I hadn't heard that information of Aaron's, which is not eating and bad blood, I'd just not bet in the race because it's the only horse I want to bet. But I mean, now hearing that, if that is true and was the reason for what it did last start, it's a living, breathing moral. Now, how you weigh that out from a price perspective, that's up to you guys. I normally just stamp horses like that even money, and so if I get anything better than even money, I bet because if that is the reason, then and the excuse, and it's back to normal, then it just wins. And I tend to just put even money next to horses like that. Look, that run at Moonee Valley was absolutely sensational. I mean, talk about franking the form. You own a horse that has since just smashed everything. So, yeah, clearly on top. Number one.
Can you anticipate a narrative for something else here, Aaron? Because, I mean, you know, basically what you really want is 2-1 this horse, given the circumstances, if that's going to result from, you know, basically a pumping up of one of the other contestants.
The only one I thought there might be money for was Always Enough, but slightly unfashionable connections jockey. So, yeah, potentially not.
All right, well, we'll have to wait on that one. For race 5, again down the straight, this time for 3-year-old fillies over 1,100 metres, and Moesha and Peace Treaty currently $5, excess $6.50. Inhibitions, the only blue colours horse at Flemington, $8.50. Bonnie Amore, 9, down low, 9. And I've got the 2 down in 1 and 2, Diamond Decorator and particularly Excess, showing out. Peace Treaty and down low are handy to the speed, and out wide, Satin and Silk and She's Bulletproof have a little bit of speed. Tell us about this one, Aaron.
Yeah, there could be some speed in this race. I expect there probably is, because there's a few of them where that's really their asset to get out bowling, and there's a couple of them where it's their first time down the straight, so I'd expect that's what they try and do. Moesha deserves to be, I think it's actually favourite at the moment, definitely deserves to be in the market. First up run there behind Estriella, which went super, and then the form line's coming in previous to that, but I just get a feel that it might be better over further, and I've got a really big opinion of Peace Treaty. Obviously, first time down the straight, but looks like one that's really going to handle it. It's a really well balanced, high cruising speed horse that's still got a really good turn of foot regardless of tempo. I think it sets up for a really good race like this, and I sort of like the short break from the last start. It wasn't a full spell, so I'd expect off that last start when it just brained them there at Moonee Valley that they had a real opinion that they might be able to pick off a pretty handy race, and have just set it for something. I've just brought it back. There was just a little tick over trial there the other day that I thought was nice, and one at a price, I think it's about $26, is Diamond Decorator. Did have favours there given how the track played at Caulfield their last start, but it matched its previous peak rating when it got a firm track and it got to lead, and it sort of maps something similar. I know it's down the straight, slightly different, but if it can reproduce the figure it did there last start, or even take some improvement, I don't think that was a fluke run, and Lost has come out and franked that line as well since I was 3 from 4.
Gord, how do you line these up?
Yeah, I got number 1, Inhibitions on top. Just normal pattern for me, which is blue, fresh. I probably wouldn't give it as much of a tick if it was running in Sydney, but it's down there in Melbourne. I really like those blue colours trials. Like for blue colours, the trial, particularly the last one at Randwick, I think it's a really big lead when J Mac rides a Cummings horse in a trial. It means the stable think the horse is going well. I know the stable have always thought this horse had a little bit of ability, hasn't quite lived up to expectation, but I think in this kind of a race, Zara booking that trial, some of its form stuff is in higher grade and against more higher quality horses than your Peace Treaties and your Moeshas, I think. So, I thought it was a nice little time to take $8 to find out. And look, I know a lot of people will say I'm mad and this horse won't get 1,100 metres, but the horse is airborne, number 2, Satin and Silk. And when horses are airborne, even if I have to overcome, the going up 100 metres in distance, I'm happy to do that in this price range, which is $14. So 1 from 2. Peace Treaty, although might have a lot of ability, isn't proven to me yet.
Yeah, the form does not appear very deep in this race, so I get your narratives there. Right, race 6, and here's the latest boom galloper, Another Will. $1.80, Magnus Spin 7, Sears 7 back from Sydney at $11, Zamborghini at 12, and not much speed to speak of. Magnus Spin, Fists of Fury, Piaggio and Another Will sort themselves up away, set themselves up out in some order, where does the favourite sit here, Aaron?
Probably three back running line is my most expected map. I would expect Magnus Bin probably rolls forward and gets the lead, given what it did there last start. They went out really quick, sat there OSL, was the only one on speed that was still there late. So I expect they'd probably try and utilise the fitness and what it did last start. It's the only one that you could potentially look at covering. Another will, yeah, looks a good thing. We were pretty keen that it was going to serious places leading into that last start. The only question was the map, and it got really assisted with some late scratchings. It got to come in a little bit, but just the way it travelled in the run, it was so fluid, and then it had to peel three wide when there was a little slacking in the race, and it didn't look like it handled the bend at Caulfield. And then once it got sort of balanced again, it just completely blew them away. It had links up its sleeve. It's going on to better things than this. And there's a few of these in the race where this is about their mark. So pretty keen 6, but I'd want a slightly better price than $1.70.
Yeah, good. Well, what about this Boom Horse?
Yeah, I probably won't play in this one because you know my rules. This horse isn't really proven in proper prize money Saturday races yet. You couldn't be any more stylish. I absolutely loved its win last start. But with the fact that you haven't run in proper Saturday Metropolitan stuff and Jamie Carr's your jockey, with those, I can't take $1.70. So saying that, I could see it shitting in. I think it's got a stack of ability. Like I know it was not a strongish race last start, but there's a couple of all right guideline horses there we have in Marble Arch and Zambogini. And on that occasion, it carried 59.5 and it's down to 55.5 here. So staying those couple of little negatives at the start, there's a lot of positives. And the number one positive is just style and what you think this horse is going to get to, which I think is really good stuff. I thought if there was a danger, it was the Sydney form here, number 3, CR7. I've really liked both its wins at Randwick and before that at Moonee Valley. So the horse is in really good form. And if another wheel isn't what we think it is, I think it's the one to probably knock it off. So
okay, CR7.
I was actually going to ask you, Mark. Did you have opinions on CR7 and Aristonis's Sydney form lines?
Look, I think that the race that CR7 won is really, really shit. Yeah. But he still won the race. You know, it's one of those situations where you can go either way, where you go, well, sorry, that form's just too bad. But and the flip side is, but he won the race, so therefore, you know, we actually don't know how bad the horse is.
Yeah.
Because it, you know, beat what was in front of it. And the other one you were asking about is the Aristonis form, which is now a few.
It's not with us.
Yeah, it doesn't seem it, does it?
Yeah, well, but it is an interesting, like, freshen up back in distance there out of what was a pretty competitive race. I know it was ridden aggressively forward. You know, I'll be keen to see how it goes there in that race. That's sort of what is it? A wild card sort of setup. Right, first of the $1 million races is the restricted sales race, the Inglis race. And we get to see the return clash of Caballas and Estriella. Caballas $3.60, Estriella $3.90. Mumbai Muse has trialled since she was eased up out of the race, first up $8.50, and Ray Koki is $11. Ouroboros, mentioned earlier, $12. And here there's lots of leaders here. Inside out, Navy King, Ray Koki, Frawley. Out wider is Brazen Style, Coincide, Kadal back in distance. I wouldn't think so. Ouroboros on the outside, and I've got Carhoff and Robrick to sort of push up in the middle there. This down the straight, what sort of race does this present, given that we've got this giant field and obviously it's going to be quite congested?
A lot of speed on, and at this part of the day, the wind might have picked up, so you might potentially see some of the speed come out of the race towards the inside where they're all trying to duck for cover. But we'll wait and see just how strong the wind is potentially. You really need to side with either Caballas or Estriella. I've sided with Estriella marginally over Caballas, just largely because I think Caballas's wins have been tough, but I think Estriella's last start was more brilliant. And I think given the tempo on in the race, it might have the best turn of foot in the field, still offer genuine speed. They've both got the Group 3 box ticked last start. So the other one for me in the race was Ouroboros, which also has that box ticked before it went out for a spell when it ran a lip behind cylinder. And look, was beaten there first up, massive drifter, but we know why. It was first up, massive weight. And I think if they wanted to really win that race, they potentially might have been able to, but they might not have also wanted to bust the horse up. They might have been targeting this race. So it's coming out of what might be a really advantageous spot on the day, and it's a reasonable price. So, look, Caballas can clearly win, but I've decided to go the other way with Estriella and Ouroboros as a bit of a chop out.
Right, these horses chasing the money rather than the future breeding glory. God, how do you split them or line them up, or what are you going to do?
What do? You go for the trainer who's the best at chasing Aussie dollars. That's what you do. You go for Bjorn Baker.
Bjorn.
He knows how to earn those Aussie dollars. Number one, Caballas, I think it's a moral. I think its 2 runs this preparation are just looking rock star form line races. It looks to have improved far more since its previous meeting with Estriella, where on that occasion he did beat it, but you could argue Estriella had a couple of excuses. But for me, this is the horse that's improved. And the sign of really stamping that is the stable change, where sometimes you get trained differently and you see how a horse responds off that. Well, off these 2 victories this preparation, the horse has responded magnificently. So if I didn't have that filthy little gear change there, synthetic hoof filler first time, I'd be a lot keener. But sometimes it's nail polish and sometimes it's half a hoof. So maybe, Aaron, you can when you're in the mounting yard mail, in the mounting yard. Yeah.
There was 2 little factors that I gave little negatives for there. Obviously, that hoof filler first time, we don't know how significant it is. And Estriella's had the Melbourne run, whereas Caballas hasn't. But it's down the straight, so it's not like you need to change legs the other way.
Yeah. My thing is the tick for sprinters is I give the tick to the horses come from Sydney.
Well, this will be first time seeing Caballas, so it will be fascinating for the Melbourne Pro subscribers to see what you have to say about Caballas and how he how he's presumably trained on from his Sydney form. So if you want to be part of the Melbourne service, then just click that little eye in the top right-hand corner. It'll take you to the subscription page of the Melbourne Pro Punter Service, which gets you a lot more than mounting yard for Melbourne, although clearly that's key and lines up with a lot of the betting strategy that Aaron puts out. But there are also prices, early prices, and final prices, post-scratching prices for these Saturday meetings. And not only that, there's invariably Melbourne commentary throughout the week on meetings of interest, races of interest. And I think, Aaron, you put out 2 subscribers the other day as part of the review of Caulfield, some approaches you do take when actually pricing these races.
Yeah, I've actually chucked it up on my Twitter. It's just an interesting one for people to consider. It's mainly around the speed maps and sort of blending your prices. You essentially do 3 markets and then weight them off those expected maps. So it's just a slightly different take that I have to some other people that price markets.
Yeah, and that might pique your interest, but certainly you should be very interested in the Melbourne Pro Punter Service. And if you are a Racing Rant subscriber, which you should be, because that gets you a lot, then you get a discount on the Melbourne Pro Punter subscription package. So more than half of your weekly silver membership, in fact. All right, race 8. it's the feature. It's the Australian Guineas, and Riff Rocket, winner of the CS Hayes, the lead up 2 weeks ago, $2.80, or it's actually $2.60, and it's $2.90 with Colossal Bet, and I don't know if they're real prices or not. V8 $8, King Colorado $8, Southport Tycoon 11, and Capacity Field, but I've just got the Pendragon leading, and V8 and Run Harry Run Handy. It's a grand final for a lot of these horses. Who's going to pick up the bridle and chase this speed? What's the map going to look like, Aaron?
Sorry, I just got partially distracted there looking for Colossal Bet. If they've got 290, that's a absurd price. I was keen on this horse, Riff Rocket, last start. The only question mark was, you're a Derby winner resuming over 14, and you've got a horse like King Colorado with a fitness edge in the race. But it's a pretty well-named horse. It goes like a rocket. It needs speed in the race to be able to expose the others. And as much as there's not like an abundance of tempo in the race, there's still enough to be a genuine Group 1 or just under that. So for me, that's still enough tempo to expose the others. The turn of foot this horse has got is electric. It still had plenty of improvement to come from the yard last start. So just given what it did there last start, the late sectionals, getting to 1600 second up, it's going to be very, very hard to beat. I think it's close to a good thing. The two that I will save on it, for me, they're really big prices. Verdad, which wasn't suited there, cluttered up in runners first up last start. It's better when it's out and bowling, given this is potentially a target race for it. Second up, drawing a good gate. I think they might go forward and potentially even try and find the front. It seems a very big discrepancy in price, $21 versus the $2.90, given only a length and a half beaten margin and not suited. So it's one you have to cover. And then the other one, which is, I think it's about 61 at the moment, which was Cap Ferrat, which is a maiden but has got really big peak ratings. It was hard to see it going off at that SP last out of about 50-1. It seemed wrong to me, and the run was hidden but really good, coming down the outside, finishing off really well. It's one that's going to appreciate getting a slightly better map than it did last start and going up in trip. So yeah, very keen Riff Rocket, but you have to cover Verdad, Cap Ferrat at the odds.
And what did we end up saying? I noticed that Otago started shortest in the lead up. I know a lot of people wandering around going, well, that just didn't have any guts to its form to be starting that sort of price. How did it shape up there against the horses you've mentioned?
It was a bizarre how much money came for this horse. I think it actually ended up going on favourite. The problem with this horse is it just lays out under pressure, and in a genuine race like this, it'll just get exposed like it did last start. It just wants to throw its head left or right and just lay out. So, not for me on this one.
Gord, what are you doing with the favourite here?
Yeah, well, you could find some reasons to be against it first up. Well, it's very difficult to find reasons to be against it on this occasion, but I mean, obviously the price is indicative of that statement. So, I don't think it can be beaten. Just the possible map positions that Williams can find from 9. In fact, that I think it had more upside than anything else in the lead up, and dominantly beat them, and is better suited on this occasion. Like, well, what more do you want? Well, I want a better price, but you don't always get what you want, do you?
Well, there is $2.90.
All I want is a little more than I'll ever get. Okay.
I did find someone cheering Riff Rocket hard in the ring there first up. He said trialled absolutely sensationally, which I don't think we made much reference to a fortnight ago. Do you recall how good those trials were before he resumed, Gord?
Well, I can never give an absolute. It's very difficult to give an absolute A-grade tick to a Waller trial, just because he tends to be pretty cute. So they can look like awesome and travel really nicely and make a little bit of ground under soft riding, but they tend to be a little bit hidden.
Yep. Okay.
I thought you were taking the piss out of me there, Mark. Huh? I thought you might have seen some vision of me carrying on. There's one other that I didn't mention, which is Zip Away, which was a really hidden run there first up. It's got WA creds over this sort of distance, 16, 1800, which could rock up.
Okay. That's the alternate lead up, of course, of 3 weeks ago, the Snow Patrol Southport Tycoon lead up. All right, the penultimate is the Blamey. Time honoured. It's been around for a long time, this race. Doesn't look like a great renewal. Ayrton, $4.80. A Tissue, a dual acceptor, $5. Carini, $7. Macram, the victor of Jimmy Star, $9. Out to Holy Man's heads the others at $12. And Speed from Ayrton in Gate 1, Arali and Future History in low to middle draws show right out. Carter du Noir and Holy Man's are not far away from their low draws, and Cezero and Bustler may poke forward from wide draws. Pace here, Aaron?
Cezero is the most interesting one. First up, I think it nearly decides the tempo of the race, whether they go above average or average. So it's going to be really interesting to see what they do. It might be indicative of how wound up the horse is, fresh first up, whether they go forward or not, but it could decide the tempo of the race. The two that have been either well backed or favourite at the moment, Ayrton and A Tissue, I've just poked little holes in them. I thought A Tissue's run there first up was only fair. I know there was some excuses for it given the tempo in the race, but it's got a lot of improvement to come from the yard. So I think the beaten margin is probably about right. Ayrton, for me, is a 1400 Caulfield bomb. So 1600 at Flemington is a bit of a different beast, but it does map to get potentially control if a couple of them don't come across from the outside gates. But there were just two easier bets at the early prices for me, which I have marked basically Ayrton, A Tissue, Macram and Carini, all a similar price. So Macram, what it did there first up, don't worry about the BSP because that was a bit wrong. It's done peak ratings in the past that would have measured up in that race. Jimmy Star just got into a ridiculous price, but it did its peak rating of its career there first up, and there was an opinion leading in that the horse is actually flying this prep. So I'm not knocking the Jimmy Star run as much as some other people are. I think, you can go and watch the review, but I've got some reasons why I'm happy to still be with Jimmy Star off that run, but it's still, Macram still beat it fair and square. And Carini, second prep in Australia is always a tick, and it raced really well the previous prep. But what it did there first up in the same race behind Macram, I thought was super considering just how much improvement it had. I know it's coming out of 14, but the map might potentially work for it, and it's got a really sharp turn of foot. So happy to sort of try and be against the 2 and the 5, just given how short they are, and back the 8 and the 14.
Yeah, it looks a key run of the 14, just to my eye. Gord, how are you doing this?
Clearly on top, number 14, Carini. I just think that was, that was just like a lovely sort of blowout to get ready for this race, I think. I think that's got a lot of improvement off that run. I love the way it extended from the 5 to the 3. It just extends like a really beautiful animal, where even though it's covering more ground, it just strides out and takes ground off them. If you look at the sectionals in the race, I think, it's looking pretty good, and then they're looking really good as far as the whole race card was concerned there at Flemington. So, I mean, saying that, Macram's the winner of the race, but I'm more treating Macram's run as an outlier event, or an outlier peak figure, rather than it being proved that it can consistently do that, while Carini just has a lot of style, has the win at Flemington over the 1,700 metres, and he's a little bit more solid, I think. So 14 Carini for me.
Sorry, Mark, there's one other horse I want to mention. I don't think, given what it's likely to go towards, I don't think it's going to be wound up first up, but this is a horse that I've backed in Caulfield and Melbourne Cup odds at markets at 50 to 1. That's the 4 Muramasa, which was just completely airborne. Different horse there last prep, and you could tell the last start before it went out, there was an issue within 800 metres of the race, pulled up with EIPH, and has trialled up well enough. I don't think it's going to be wound up for this race. I think they're targeting a pretty serious race, and it might just have a short prep leading into the spring. But keep your eye out for.
It used to be a race that the Williams used to target with their Melbourne Cup horses, the Blamey.
Yes.
We'll just have a run in the Blamey and then we'll duck off. Right, we wrapped the card up with an 84 over 1400 dense market. He's our Bonneville, dual acceptor at Morphettville, $5. So Risque at 6, Frigid 650. Aaron Bay 8, Sandy Prince 8, and Lounge Bar Ruby 850. They're your chances as far as the betting is concerned. And I've got Holbein and Sandy Prince to show out. So Risque and Thunderpoint to hold their low draws. Royal Mile and Belle Plaisir to poke forward and add to the speed. What are you saying about the map and the race? Take us out.
Yeah, it's probably a average tempo. I don't think there's any surprises in the horse that I'm going to tip here. He's our Bonneville.
You and he are married.
Oh, I love it. I was keen on it first up at 20s. It got beat a lip, just peaked on its run late, got beat by a fit horse. Last start was slow out, got stuck out the back, absolutely flashed. Now it gets to third up. Should be at peak off yard their last start, and this is a bang-on benchmark 84 race, whereas I've always had a slightly higher opinion of this horse that it might be, benchmark 100, might even pick off a black type race at some point. And then the other one, Aaron Bay, which is in the same race there, last start behind Jenny Lala. G resumed well. I mentioned it in my yard notes. Besides the top four, I sometimes chuck one in when there's a horse at odds that's come back particularly well. It's not its day. This was one that I mentioned and just said not its day, but really look for this horse second and third up. It's come back really well. And the run was enormous. It was trapped there wide without cover for the entirety and still did some really good late splits, only beaten a couple of lengths. The map sets up for it much better now, coming out of 5 versus their 12 last start. So, yeah, I was pretty keen to play 7 and 4, and there's a few that I think you can poke holes in that are still under double figure odds.
So here's a Bonneville also engaged in Morphettville race 8, field of 9, and currently $3.50. Looks an interesting alternative. Gord, have you got a play for us to take us out?
Yeah, love this one. This is a great betting race. Number 11, Frigid is on top. Just yet again, love the jump outs. And then let's have a look at what it did last preparation. It was a dominant winner on a couple of occasions. It had the height to run over 2,000 metres at Caulfield, win by 4.5 lengths, have 3 weeks off, go back to 1,400 metres and run a cracking second to Nunthorpe and Yellow Sam.
It was 3 wide the trip.
Last preparation, it's been ridden by Wariah Pin, Tatum Bull. Who jumps on it on Saturday? Damien Lane jumps on. I've got 2 awesome jump outs. I'm against super weak opposition. I've got form lines that are linked, and it's hard to sort of decide which way with He's Our Bonneville, So Risque, etc. Aaron's given his opinion about why he's leaning towards our Bonneville. I don't think it's as easy a decision as that to make. New kid on the block. Right connections, $7 to find out against limited oppositions. It's my bet of the day, number 11, Frigid.
Wow, that is a salvo to see us out. So don't forget, if you've not tried the Melbourne Pro Punter service, you'll be quite amazed, actually. So just click on that I to take you to the subscription page, and that will give you access to the Melbourne Pro or Melbourne MYM channel in our chat room. And if you're not a member, well, if you are a member.
Hey, Mark, there's even the odd Hong Kong winner in there these days as well,
420 moral.
Don't forget those, indeed. So thanks for watching. Flemington looks very interesting. Stay tuned for Brisbane and Sydney previews to come. So keep your eye out for those. And I hope Saturday goes well for all of you.
Good luck, guys.
Good luck.